It's saying this is the state we're at, but it's the worst it will ever be because we're going to improve it tomorrow. We have loads and loads of improvement opportunities because it's a journey and there's no such thing as a perfect organisation. Is it as good as YouTube? No, it's not. How could it be? And we're always striving for excellence, knowing rightly that we're never going to get there.
So Ryan, this is the unexpected part 2. We're in the middle of answering questions from 100 different business owners all around the world to celebrate Lean Made Simple, this podcast, hitting 100 different countries. We ended up covering about 5 questions last time because we got so into it, and we were just about to answer a pretty spicy question from somebody who was just kind of calling you out a bit, who they were like, look, Ryan, you make this whole thing look easy. Your factory looks immaculate. It looks like Disneyland. Is it all a facade? What is it really like?
Yeah.
I know, is it Instagram versus reality? And so, yeah, let's get into it. What do you have to say?
Yep. I knew when we asked for questions that we would be would have to answer the hard ones too. But yep, it's a brilliant question and I'm glad somebody asked it. And a lot of people say the same thing. They come across our content on YouTube, on LinkedIn and all the different platforms. They listen to the podcast on Spotify and whatever. And we often get the comment of, is it actually that good? Or are you making it, is it all edited for YouTube?
Right.
And I did think the same when I came across Lean, almost a decade ago. I thought it's too good to be true. So the answer is it as good as YouTube? No, it's not. How could it be?
Yeah.
When we're putting out content, we're showing what's possible. We're showing what a company can strive for. We have loads and loads of issues. We have loads and loads of improvement opportunities because it's a journey. And there's no such thing as a perfect organisation. There's no such thing as a perfect company. Anybody that knows anything about lean or continuous improvement or Kaizen, whatever you want to call it, it's a journey. And we're always striving for excellence, knowing rightly that we're never going to get there. So we still have issues. We still have loads of problems. We still send defects to our customer. We're not proud of it, but we do. Mm-hmm. They have reduced dramatically since we started Lean. Our people are so much more engaged than they were before we started Lean. The company runs absolutely, it's day and night compared to the way it was. But do we still have room for improvement? Absolutely we do. But one of our goals for the Lean Made Simple tour is for when people who have watched all of our content, they've soaked up all the information, we want them to come on a Lean Made Simple tour and think, wow, this is better than I expected. It's actually better than what we're seeing on YouTube. Mm-hmm. There is a bit of, there's an expectation for us to be at a certain level because we know people are coming to see it. We all also know people are coming to maybe pick holes in it.
100%.
And we know that. But we're opening up our doors and we're trying to be humble and say, if you see anything that can be better, just say. But
it's part of the reason why you also do what you do.
Yeah.
Because you're getting all these extra eyeballs and earballs. People are very forthcoming on the internet to tell you, that's a load of nonsense, or that framework doesn't make sense to me. And it's crowdsourcing improvements as well, and it's also whenever you have a guest coming over to dinner with your family, it's the house is a wee bit more tidier than it is on a normal school night, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so one of the big things about doing the tour is to raise the standard of always trying to be buttoned up, always trying to put your best foot forward. And it's a form of accountability as well, I think. And I've seen you in your content, put things out there and it forces you to raise the standard even higher, So there is a very interesting accountability piece in there too.
Yeah. Even for health and safety wise, we often in the past have got called out on health and safety issues that people have seen on video. We're we hold our hands up and say, yep, we get it. We're on a journey too. We're not perfect at all. We're just documenting our journey. We're showing everybody what we're doing, but we have so much more to do.
Mm-hmm. That it reminds me of the podcast we did recently. I think the title was Manufacturing Guru Roasts My Factory.
Yeah.
You know, and not being open to that and actually inviting that criticism. And, you know, Russell was amazing, but Russell had some very serious feedback to give. And like,
Yep.
and it's important to like be public about that and also take that on board.
Yeah. And Russell, it's interesting. Russell actually started his Lean Made Simple tour, and he said, there's two ways we can do this. He said, the first way is that I can go around the factory and tell you what everybody else tells you and say, oh, this is brilliant, and I love your visual management, and I love your Kanban system, and I love how everything's so organized. He says, or I can, option two is I can give you a list of things that can be better. And straight away I was like, option two.
Yeah.
Let's go for option two, because we want the feedback. We want to know what we can do better.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude that a lean leader needs.
That's interesting. So David Caffery's got a great question here. Thank you, David. Really appreciate all support. What are some daily activities, and I'm going to slip in, and mindsets that is essential for lean leaders?
One thing that we try to do, we're getting better at it as well, but one of the things we try to do at meetings, and especially at the morning meeting, is to not speak and not give the answers. When people come for tours all the time, they often can't pick out who the leaders are, who the managers are. We're all dressed the same, we all look the same. And a lot of companies, you get the manager or the owner, and they're controlling the meeting. They've got all the answers. Everybody looks to them to see what they think. At our company, we're trying to almost blend into the background to let our people rise. Because if we don't do that, we're just going to be micromanaging the business for the rest of our lives. So if there's one thing that we do as lean leaders and as business leaders, it's be quiet and not be the first person to shout out the answer, not be the first person to solve the problem. Because once you are seen as the problem solver, you're just going to get more and more problems to solve. So be quiet. It's probably
keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And getting out of the way, you know, it's interesting. Like, let's just be a bit meta for a second. It's like, what are you doing right now? It's like you're sitting in a podcast and your factory is, you know, an hour away and it's running without you because your people are running it because they're leaders and they've total ownership. And you stepping away from that, it gives you fresh ideas, gives you the chance to develop new concepts.
I think that's why lean suited my personality back when I stumbled across it as well, because I wasn't that leader to go in and give orders and do this and do that. And I kind of was always, you know, reserved in the way that I approached people or the way that I delegated tasks. And I think that's why lean worked so well for me. That's why I connected with it a lot at the start, because I was able to sit back and let the system be the expert, let the process be the expert, let the leaders rise to solve the problems, and I could almost be at the back managing from behind almost.
Yeah. This is a really interesting question. I think I know the book that this person's read to ask this. How do you balance as an owner between working on the business and working in the business?
It's something that myself and Jonathan and Martin, my two brothers, it's something that we're always conscious of, because we did set up the business. We've been there from the start. We do have a lot of the answers, and we do have the answers to a lot of problems and a lot of questions. So it's so easy to jump in and give the answer and not hold back and be working in the business. Systems and processes have set us free. They have allowed us to step away, so that when all these systems and processes are working, we're able to be over here working on the business. It takes constant reminders, because you do get dragged into it all the time. But our goal is to work on the business, probably 80-20, I suppose, 80% on the business, 20% in the business. But it's also good to show humility and, you know, work in the business when we need to. For example, myself and the other two brothers, Jonathan and Martin, we do toilet duty. And this is unheard of for a company our size, for the owners to be taking their turn to clean the toilets. But that's what we do. We do kitchen duty. We're just on a rota, the same as everybody else. So the goal of that, and the reason we do that, is to show that if we're prepared to do it, everybody should be prepared to do it. So that level of humility is really important in a lean organization, or in any organization for that matter.
Have I made this up? Or like, say in your morning meeting room, you've got all this like text on the wall and it's like your vision and your values. Servant-hearted, is that on there?
It is, yeah. To have a servant's heart.
Do you want to unpack that a little bit? Because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's one of our we call it our DNA, driven by growth, never give up, and a servant's heart, DNA. So that's in our DNA, and everybody, or we strive for. I'm going to say strive for, because I'm not going to sit here and say everybody believes that all of the time. It's a journey, like everything, but we strive to live by them values. The servant's heart, that really came from the users and the patients that are using our chair. We see our customer not only as the person who's sitting in the chair, but the caregiver who's caring for the patient who's sitting in the chair.
Right.
And the attitude of a caregiver is to have a servant's heart. A nurse, an occupational therapist, a physiotherapist, they will do, as you know, they will do overtime. They will go in early. They will stay on late. They will do whatever they need to do to help and serve their patients. So that's the same attitude that we want to have in our company, because we want to be similar to how our customers think. So our customers have a servant's heart in the way that they help the patients. So we want to have a servant's heart in the way that we support each other internally and how we support our customer.
Very cool. How does that servant's heart spill into how you treat your team members? Because we did a great episode recently, or at least I thought it was great, about being the customer. And you kind of shared this really interesting concept, how you have an external customer and you have an internal customer.
Yeah.
So how do you guys as a business like have a servant's heart towards your team?
So we see the next person in the process as the customer. People think the customer is the person who's buying the chair, the person who's buying the end product or buying the service at the end, the person who's putting the money into the bank. People see that as the customer, but we see the next person in the process as the customer. So every single person has an internal customer and an external customer. And the goal is to treat the internal customer with the same level of respect as we would treat the actual customer. So when we're passing material from the woodworking department to the upholstery department, we see that as serving our customer. Yes, it's our internal customer, but we should give the same level of attention, the same level of quality, the same level of respect internally as we do externally.
Very, very interesting. Another great question here. They ask, should you incentivize improvements? And if so, how?
Yep. I have a couple of different sides of this, and I'm just going to give both sides, because the first answer that just came to me straight away is that no, we don't incentivize for doing lean improvements. And the reason for that is that our entire job is to do improvements. So if you look at the job title of everyone in our organization, it's process engineer. So our accountant's job isn't to be an accountant. Our accountant's job is to improve the process of doing accounts. If somebody is a welder in our factory, their job isn't welder. Their job is improve the process of welding the product.
Right.
So our entire job, and it's what we recruit for, and it's made very clear at the start, your job when you come into this organization, your job is to improve the process of how you do your job. So for somebody not to improve, they're actually not doing their job. They're actually not doing what they're there to do.
Right.
Their job isn't to do the job is to improve the job.
Yeah, the wage is the incentive, because that's the way the organization's set up.
Exactly.
Very interesting, yeah. What do you think the danger is of incentivizing everything?
The danger is that people just do lean improvements to get the bonus or to get the incentive, and then it's done for the wrong reasons. People need to know why they're improving. They need to know why we're doing all these improvements. They need to know what the end goal is. And if the end goal of doing an improvement is to get £5 or $5, they're only going to do it for the money.
Right.
So that's not the goal. having said that, at the start of our lean journey, we tried all sorts of things to get it off the ground. And I would encourage companies listening to this to do do what works for you. If you think an incentive program will help to get this off the ground, then go for it. Again, don't compare your journey to the Seat Matters journey. You know your culture, you know your team, you know what makes them, what motivates them. And if there's some incentive-based system there that can encourage and inspire, then I would say absolutely run the experiment and try it.
It's interesting, like you mentioned earlier about that you're always striving towards almost like an ideal, you know, something that can never really be reached.
It's saying this is the state we're at, but it's the worst it will ever be because we're going to improve it tomorrow again. So we often say that when we buy a new machine, if we buy a new piece of CNC equipment, for example, we're adding tool holders to it, we're adding dust extractors, we're adding, maybe a safety guard, we're adding stuff to this brand new machine, a £200,000 machine, and we're adding stuff to it because that's the worst it will ever be. Actually, the machine suppliers often come to our factory to get ideas for product improvement because we've taken a machine and, loads of lean thinkers around the world. Brad Kearns, probably the most famous one for this, is he'll take a brand new machine and he'll improve the machine, and then the supplier of the machine comes back to see how they can make it better. So the worst it will ever be, it's a really good mindset to have. It's a nice starting point. It's a nice basis. It's a nice platform to say, okay, it's a journey. We're never going to get there, but this is the worst it will ever be.
It's something that's one of the things that from you that I've taken that is actually very, very, very practical, Because there is you get into this whole lean world and it's like all this sort of stuff. But, actually, there you go. There's a question. So someone asks you, Ryan, why do you think Lean Made Simple is successful? Why do you think? Because lots of people put out content, but why do you think the content is actually resonating with people?
I'm not 100% sure, but I've maybe a few ideas of why Lean Made Simple is becoming so successful. Every time we do a podcast, every time we do a video, the views and the subscribers and the like, everything is more than the previous video. It just keeps growing. And I don't know, but I think maybe the reason is because all we're doing is documenting our journey.
Right.
We're practically physically doing lean every day. We just happen to be talking about it as well. And people, I think people like the reality of that. We're sharing our problems as well as our wins. We're figuring stuff out, and then we have a platform to go and share that information with people who are on a similar journey. So something that I always love that you say a lot is to be the person you needed when you were younger, or be the person you needed 10 years ago. And we're really just documenting what we're doing. We're not creating content for the sake of creating content. We figure something out, or figure out a new way to do something, or come up with a new lean concept. And then we've got a perfect platform now through the podcast and YouTube and LinkedIn to share that information. So another reason, I suppose, that Lean Made Simple has become really successful is because the information is so simple. It's in the name.
It's on the tin.
There's people who, we get messages and emails and thank you cards to the office all the time from all over the world. People are saying, like, your information has changed our company. It's absolutely, it's crazy. Because there's people who have tried lean in the past and couldn't get it to work. There's people who studied lean at university and thought it was too theoretical and not something that they could ever apply to their own lives. So all of a sudden, all these people are being excited about something that they kind of maybe heard of before but didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
They're feeling empowered and they're feeling that I could do this.
Yeah.
I can listen to a Lean Made Simple podcast or a video and an hour later go and implement what I've just learned. I think people find it really relatable.
I think that's the power of documenting as well, is you kind of have proof of how bad it used to be, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Because success is, in any domain in life, it is exponential. So you'll just be here. If this is a graph, right? Pretend this is a graph. You're just here. You're here for years. Years and years and years and years and years and years and years. And it's so subtle. And then all of a sudden it's like, boop. And so the difference between, here and here seems like infinite for someone who's just starting off. But if you have, here's a photo of how crap our factory used to be.
Yeah.
Here's a story of how my first morning meeting, my hands were shaking holding a piece of paper. It shows, it creates a bridge between those two places.
Yeah.
And I think that bridge is kind of sometimes all we need in any domain to see like, oh, well, if that person did that, then like, sure, I could do it.
Yeah.
And like something you guys say all the time is, what is it? We're just ordinary people, something.
We're just ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Right.
There's nothing special about us. We're from Limavady, Northern Ireland. The factory's in the middle of nowhere in the mountains.
In the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
We're not doing anything. We're not, there's nothing special about our people or about us or about our team. We just happen to be doing a few simple things really well, and it's working. And thankfully, we have a platform to share that journey with lots of people.
I think we're in final question territory here. Let me find a good one here, because there was one that I circled that was really, really good. So Ryan, if you go back to the start of your lean journey and you could redo some elements of it, what would you change? So this is like the classic time travel question, where if you could go back in time and do it all again, is there anything that you could shortcut for someone listening to this?
One thing I would do, it's okay looking back saying you would do this, but one thing looking back that I would do is I would actually go slower and bring people with me more. I tried to do that, but sometimes I would get so excited and so passionate and I would just go in and change a pile of stuff. And probably the more mature, older me, 10 years later, would take it easier and go steadier and bring people on board on the journey. Because I came across Lean on YouTube one night and I went in the next day and I was like, we're going to do this. This is crazy. Why did nobody tell me this before? And I kind of went in like a bulldog instead of a sheepdog.
Right.
And looking back, I would have took it easier and had a more steady plan for rolling out continuous improvement, because we made so many mistakes. We wasted a lot of money at the start too. We tried things that were, looking back, it was so obvious we shouldn't have done it. But a wee bit of thinking would have helped that. Something I learned at the last trip to the Toyota plant in the UK was 70% planning, 30% action. So 70-30. Toyota have this. I'm not sure if it's a Toyota thing or just what we talked about that day at Toyota, but it's something that I'm trying to get better at, and that we're all trying to get better at. Instead of just jumping in to do an improvement, or jumping in to hire the next person, or jumping in to buy the next new machine, 70% planning, 30% action.
Right.
So make a plan, roll it out, get everybody on board, and then take the action. I kind of done it the other way about.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it took to get it off the ground. I'm not sure, but looking back, that's one thing I would change.
I think the action is one of your superpowers, because I think the state most people are in is inaction. So I think a bit of volume at the start is probably a good thing, even if you break a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about bringing people with you. Like when I was 18, I lived and worked in Rwanda for a while after school. And it's a famous African proverb. I'm sure everyone's heard it before. You're probably nodding because you know what I'm about to say. But it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that is what you guys are now doing, is you're going there together. And the exponential compound effect of that is so much bigger than if it was just Ryan the bulldog doing it himself.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, thank you to every single person who has submitted questions. Thank you for the feedback on the Q&A format. It's definitely, we were talking, it's definitely something we'd love to do more of.
Yeah.
It's very, very enjoyable. It feels like you're really adding value. Do you know what I mean? It's like, instead of guessing. And so please, there'll be a link in the description of wherever you're listening or watching. You can submit a voice message or you can drop a comment with a question and we will cover it in a future Q&A. Other than that, Ryan, appreciate you. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.